Right, we're going to go into settings and advanced settings today to talk about classes and locations and how to enable them. It's pretty straightforward, should be a quick video. However, class and locations are super important. If you do not have these turned on in your file, it's definitely something to consider. You also want to have awareness because this is one of the areas that will send you into QuickBooks Online Advanced if you get too elaborate. So in QuickBooks or in any system that you're in, any database that you're in, the goal of putting data into a database is so that we can report on the data, right? So we have lots of ways so far that we talked about how you can report on data. You can use your chart of accounts, run financial data, try to keep that chart of accounts pretty simple. Then you can also have products and services. We can run sales by product and service reports, right? So lots of customers, vendors, all these different fields that we've already talked about. Well, track classes and locations is another way to segment your data. So the intent of track classes is if you go into another system, a lot of times some of the older systems especially, they'll have what's called segmented keys or sub-account keys, and what they'll do is that they will allow you to basically create subledger reports off of your P&L or your balance sheet. And the class is the same thing, except for in other systems what they would do a lot of times is they used to keep the GL account codes for all in one chart of accounts. So you'd have rent, and that's department 6000. And then rent for department 1 was GL account code 6000-001. Rent for department 2 was 6000-002. And then you could run reports based off of the O1 subcategory and O2. But then what would happen is you'd also have on your chart of accounts, you'd have utilities-001, utilities-002. And you can imagine you take one chart of accounts, now we're multiplying it times whatever our they call it sub-accounts, but whatever our segmented key there is, the additional dash, whatever comes after it, it can grow super long. So QuickBooks does a good job of this by putting these fields in additional tables and then still allowing us to run reports on them. So once we turn these on, so classes basically, usually people use it by department or by cost code or something like that. Locations, generally people will use that for physical locations, right? So my inventory is in Austin versus Dallas. But if you don't have physical locations, I mean, you can use locations for other things, right? It's just a field to put data on so we can report on it. So let's go ahead and take a look. We'll go into classes in some other videos a lot more and how the reports look. But let's go ahead, now that we have them turned on, let's look at what it looks like on an invoice as an example. Okay. Now, these do not just show up on invoices. They show up on the bills. They show up on the item receipts. They show up on journal entries. We'll take a look at a journal entry type transaction here in a second. But basically, when we look at this transaction, I actually have my location set up as divisions. I've decided to call them divisions in here. So I can see here my different divisions that I have in the system, right? Then down below, I have my classes on the line level. So it's something that is important to note is that location, right, sits at the top of the transaction and will apply to all lines. Whereas class, you can split up a transaction to multiple classes on the same transaction, right? So just something to keep in mind when you're deciding what information should I put into which place. If you need to split the transaction, it's going to have to be a class or, right, a product as an example. Okay. So that's on an invoice. Let's go ahead and take a look at an expense real quick. If I put in a new bill as an example. So same thing in here, I have that division field and I have the class field down below. And then when I come over here to my new button to add even just a journal entry as an example, right? So here's my journal entry and I have division and class there. So these fields carry throughout the entire program, which makes them very powerful fields because, of course, as you guys are going to hear me say all the time, the more transaction or the more data you put into your system, the more we're going to be able to report on that data, okay? So if you're not using those two fields, they're very powerful fields, and we should definitely consider using them.